The Philanthropy Club of Illinois was founded over 20. Oh, I will I will back up. The Philanthropy Club of Illinois was founded over 20 years ago by Gus Wilhelmy, the co-founder of the Safer Foundation. The club is 100% volunteer driven, and our singular goal is to level the playing field for all Illinois nonprofits when it comes to accessing the funding to support the mission, their organizations, and communities that they serve. We fulfill our goal by providing no-cost monthly programming to support nonprofits with access to funders and by offering technical skill building for effective fundraising. The Philanthropy Club of Illinois is sponsored by Forefront. Visit myforefront.org to learn more about their services for Illinois-based nonprofits. Our Forefront staff partner is Susie Lee, who is currently behind the scenes ensuring that we have a seamless time of learning this morning. Thank you so much, Susie, for all that you do. So today we are all very lucky to be joined by Liz Thompson. Liz is the CEO of the Cleveland Avenue Foundation for Education Group, aka the CAFE Group. As CEO of the CAFE Group, Liz provides support to leaders of color whose proximity to education allows them to create meaningful and relevant solutions. Liz grew up in Chicago's Cabrini Green housing development and credits her parents, family, and a strong community for shaping her values and her vision. Liz and her husband, Don, are also co-founders of Cleveland Avenue, an investment firm whose name reflects the street that they both grew up on in their childhood. Liz is the recipient of numerous awards and honors and adds value as a director on various local and national boards, including Chicago Public Media, where we work together. So this only scratches the surface of Liz's impact and achievements in our sector, and I cannot keep you here all day while I list them all. The point is, as you can see, she's incredibly well positioned to help us understand the perspective of a donor and share do's and don'ts for cultivation and stewardship, which is what we're going to focus on today. So I'm going to start by asking Liz a handful of questions, and then we're going to have plenty of time to get to all of your questions. So feel free to start populating them in the chat as we go, or later you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand and ask a question live if you prefer that. Liz, are you ready?
I am, but Lisa, first, I got to say hello. I love it when people's faces are on the screen. So to all of you, and I understand when people can't be, you got 16 things going on at once. I get it. But Matt, you know, I love you, dude. Katrina, Bonnie, Kelly, Shelly, David, Michelle, Sari, Audrey, Rachel, all the people that I can see on my screen right now, you give me life. Molly and Caroline, Ann and Kyle, y'all give me life. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Liz. I told you guys we were lucky she was here. Liz, I would like to start out with story time. Can you tell us a story about a time that you were really effectively engaged by an organization you support?
Yep. I will start. Well, I'm going to start with Chicago Public Media. How about that? Um, when I joined the board, and I honestly don't remember how many years ago. It's got to be 8 or more years ago since I joined the board at Chicago Public Media. Brian Traubert was the chairman of the board at the time. And when I tell you this dude engaged me like no other, it started off by how he recruited me to the board. And, you know, that was a few years ago. So I wasn't as savvy as I am now, knowing when people are out to recruit me. He had me over his house. There was a big reception there, and he greeted me at the front door. He's like, "Oh, Liz, we're so happy you're here." I'm like, "Oh, you know who I am?" So, you know, it went from that to, "Oh, we'd like for you to think about joining the board." And then all the way to, we'd like for you to chair the gala in your first 6 months joining the board, and all things in between. And so while at the time it felt like drinking from a fire hose, when I look back on that time, I realized I felt incredibly valued by the way he took such direct interest in getting me involved and in the ways that he got me involved. That's one of the best stewardship examples I have. And then there's another one as well, with the Chicago Public Housing, the National Public Housing Museum. Um, Lisa Lee, Sunny Fisher, the folks over there have been incredibly effective at getting me involved, knowing that it's a passion of mine, having grown up in Cabrini Green. And they've been very gentle uh, and very compelling at the same time. So these are stories, and we can get into the details a little bit more later, Lisa, but two examples of where I feel like I was being effectively stewarded, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Wonderful. So now at the other end of the spectrum, what turns you off as a donor or a stakeholder of an organization?
There is one thing in particular. I know none of y'all on the call do this, but I will get emails from folks saying, we'd like to pick your brain about a campaign we're starting. We don't need anything from you. We just want to get your ideas about how we might effectively engage people in the campaign, which on the surface sounds lovely. But then after about 47 and a half minutes into the call, they will say, now, if we, for example, were to engage you in the campaign, dot, dot, dot. And it always feels like the okey doke to me. And I still usually say yes, because the people that ask are people that are important to me, but it feels like an okey doke. And so the takeaway from that is, if you want to solicit me for a campaign, solicit me for a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Don't use the veil of, we just want your ideas. That doesn't feel great to me.
Right, it's a bait and switch,
It is.
and then it's kind of like they're trying to put you on the spot where you,
Yep. If you want my
according to what they've
ideas,
said,
yeah,
you were expecting it because you're smart, but they didn't lead you to expect it, and so then you're like,
I
oh,
feel like it's the bait and switch.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point. I think, there's this like old adage that a lot of fundraisers know that's like, if you want money, ask for advice, and if you want advice, ask for money or something. And it's like, okay, but also just tell them what you're going to ask for.
Yes, absolutely. For sure.
Tell the donor what you really want to talk about, so that you're earning their trust.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so my next question, Liz, is what advice would you have for a development professional who is maybe newer to major gifts work or taking on a new portfolio or getting to know a new donor, and they're getting ready to ask someone for a new gift or increased support?
What advice would I have for them?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's always effective with me, Lisa, is to start small. The most effective stewardship campaigns for me, as I said, they started small, an invitation to lunch, an invitation to a reception, something that feels like the lowest possible of all lifts. Come have coffee with me and let's just get to know each other, which doesn't feel like bait and switch, right? Because that's genuine. I really want to get to know you. That always works for me, and I assume it might work for others. And then from there, to so slowly start to increase the gravitas of the ask, but slowly start to increase that. So maybe it's an invitation to coffee, to tea, to lunch, and then maybe it's maybe you could host a lunch just for a couple of other folks. And then maybe it's that went so well. Could we think about hosting a dinner? So for me, because very often folks feel like they may not be good at things. So if you go right into well, write us a check, that's a no-no. Everybody on the call knows that. But if you start with, we want you to chair a gala, or we want you to host a dinner, that can feel like a heavy lift. But if you kind of usher them through the process, like maybe you could host a lunch for two folks. Then maybe we could host a small dinner for four and bring them along and help them to understand you got this. And the truth is, people like to feel small successes that can ladder up into bigger wins. And at least I do anyway, Lisa. So my advice to development professionals, bring people along the journey with you. Demonstrate to them that they can do this, whatever it is that you're asking. For the people that are much more savvy, for the people that have been around the block a few times, of course, you can start with a heavier ask. But for folks that have not been around the block as much, which is the vast majority of people, start small. Yes, it may take more time, but the loyalty that you build along the way is more sticky. It stays longer. The smaller you start and the more you ladder up. So that's been my experience.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, what should folks with very limited resources prioritize when it comes to cultivation and stewardship of their donors?
Getting to know the people. Um, I had a conversation with someone not too long ago that didn't know what we did at the Cafe Group. They didn't know that we have a venture capital firm. Like they didn't know these things, basic Googleable stuff. They didn't know. And it just made me feel like, wow, you could have taken the extra 5 minutes to do that. It would have made me feel a little bit more seen in the process. And it surely would have given you a longer, runway of things to talk about because, I'm taking time telling you about myself, time that we didn't need to take because you should have known that.
Mm-hmm.
So, prioritizing getting to know the person in advance by any means necessary. I mean, call the assistant, do whatever you got to do, but get the info. But not in a shady kind of way, of course. And then try and understand what is motivating to that person. I'm about to be a first-time grandma. While that may not be Googleable, you talk to anybody that has been with me in the last 6 months, and everybody knows I'm about to be a grandmother. So if you take the time to do a little research, you'll know, right, Susie, I'm about to be a grandma. And I'm going to be called Lulu, by the way. So, but anybody that's been around me knows that. You should know that. You got to figure out how to know that kind of stuff so that when we're calling, I'm loving all these hearts. So that when we are on a call or when we're together, the first 5 minutes of our conversation is about me about to become a grandmother. Absolutely nothing else is more important right now. So the prioritization of getting to know the individual, right, Katrina? That prioritization is real. And it puts you in a position to already be on good footing with that person. So that's priority number one. And priority number two is just be very clear about what it is you're trying to accomplish and how you need the person on the other side of that table, on the other side of that Zoom screen, how you need their participation uniquely. Like, I need you, Liz, because
Mm-hmm.
dot, dot, dot. Not just generically, uniquely. Why do you need me? Those two things are the priorities when you're talking to me. That's what gets my attention right away.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really sage advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pause quickly to let everyone know I have just two more questions I'm gonna ask Liz, because I wanted to leave tons of time. We have 78 people on this call. And so I wanted to leave tons of time for your questions. So if you think of questions, feel free to populate them in the chat now. And we'll also give you the chance to unmute and ask directly if you prefer. So Liz, your last comment actually segues perfectly into my next question. I don't know if you planned that or not, but thank you. When you're talking about getting volunteer leaders involved in fundraising in particular, what approach would you recommend, especially if there's maybe a little resistance or a little bit of a lack of comfort or experience? How can we best approach maybe a board member or committee member and get them involved in our fundraising and development work?
Fundraising. Yeah. I'm going to go back to something I said earlier, Lisa. The hesitation normally comes from one of two buckets. And look, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a researcher, but I'm going to say 90% of the hesitation is in one of these two buckets. Either I don't feel comfortable asking for money. Like there's no world where I feel comfortable asking anyone for money. Bucket number one. And bucket number two, I may feel okay doing it, but I don't know how to effectively do it. Those two buckets is where most people are living if they have any resistance to getting involved in fundraising. And so the idea, the I don't feel comfortable asking, that's a tougher one. But bringing them along so that they understand how to more effectively do it. And that is where I go back to start small. Maybe host a lunch with me, a lunch for one or two people, where you can see this is not, it's not rocket science. It's really just about building relationships with people. You've got to bring them along so that they have small successes that can ladder up into bigger asks, into bigger wins. And for me, it's always been because I'm out here in these streets trying to raise money to do my own work, and I still feel uncomfortable asking people for money. It's just not part of my nature. Um, but when I have small wins along the way, it gives me more confidence. It makes me feel like I'm more positioned to do it. So I think, Lisa, my answer, it's not as tactical as it could be, but give people the opportunity to have small wins and then ladder them up to bigger wins. And I promise you, it will go from hesitancy to, okay, I can do this. And the more you're able to demonstrate that, the more comfortable they will be being your biggest advocates.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Don't have to throw them in the deep end right at the start.
No, no. Wait, can I give you one example of this?
Oh,
I'm not going
please.
to use the name, but this is real time. So,
Ooh.
yeah, this is real time. So I'll try and be confidential about this. There's a philanthropist here in Chicago. She's one of the most powerful women in Chicago, low key. I mean, low key. You would all know her, but she is as low key as they come. She has just so graciously agreed to help us on our campaign to try and bring more people into the world of education funding. She gave us a comment the other day that just made me feel so good, and it's an example of this. She said, I have been on the other end of so many asks. It feels good for me to finally be doing the asking. This is real time, y'all. Like these words have been uttered in the last 48 hours. So it's because we've held her hand, we've given her real tools, like we've helped her write the letters, we've helped her with the phone call scripts, we've helped with all of the things. And she's getting her groove on right now and she's feeling good about it. So it works. It really does work. And it's authentic. It's not this is not like we're not just doing this because we want her to feel successful.
Yeah.
And she's just the person we need to do it. Like you uniquely are the person we need to do this. And it's been just a beautiful process.
Wow. I hope you can get her to shout it from the rooftops and tell
Oh my
everyone she
God.
knows about that feeling.
Oh, it is a good feeling. It's a good feeling. It really
We,
is.
yes, I think everyone here knows
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Y'all know I'm preaching to the choir. Yeah,
And it's not as scary as, for most people, it's not as scary as they think it's going to be.
that's right.
Um, uh, Liz, my last question is I'm hoping that we can hear one more story, although you just gave us a great example. Um, do you have any other stories about a time when you helped bring in new support for an organization and tell us what made the difference?
Mm.
How, how did, um, how did you achieve that win for the organization?
Yeah, so I about again, I'm not good with dates. I don't know how many years ago. How many of you all know the organization Braven? Just put some hearts up or some hands up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so most of y'all know. Okay, Eubanks Davis, the CEO of Braven, started Braven between the two coasts in New Jersey and in San Jose, California. Now Ami's from Chicago, lived in Chicago, but she started Braven on the two coasts. And she didn't feel like she had the champions that she needed to have Braven in Chicago. There's a little background. For years, I had been hearing Ami's name. And people were like, you don't know Ami. How do you not know Ami? And on the other end, Ami said she would hear the same thing. You don't know Liz? How do you not know Liz? And I don't remember exactly who brokered the introduction, but I remember one morning we met for coffee at the Starbucks down on Franklin and Chicago Avenue. And we started talking. It took her about 30 minutes to convince me that Braven was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I said to her words that I had never said to anyone at the time. And that was, I'm going to help you bring Braven to Chicago. I said, I don't know how. Like, I see all these other philanthropists bringing organizations to cities and stuff. I don't know how to do that, but I'm committing to you right here and right now. We're going to get Braven in Chicago. And I proceeded to call everybody that I knew. We hosted breakfasts, we hosted lunches. We did all the things that I had watched other philanthropists do to generate interest in this organization called Braven. I had some experience with that because I started City Year in Chicago with Michael Alter back in 1993. So I had some experience in bringing a new organization into a city where it wasn't, it didn't exist before. But I was the executive director of that organization. Doing it as a philanthropist and as chairman of the board was a different proposition. And so it really was using every bit of social capital that I had and being willing to do that. And then with the operational excellence that Braven had already achieved internal to the organization, we were able to make it happen. Lot of sweat equity that went into that, Lisa, but a lot of belief. And I will tell you, I was not the confident philanthropist that I am today at all. I didn't know what the hell I was doing on a lot of levels, but I had two things that I was not going to compromise on: belief in me and belief in that organization. And in my mind, with those two things and a willingness to spend your social capital, you can pretty much do whatever. And so that's the best example that I have of when I brought new interests, new resources to an organization that didn't even exist yet in Chicago.
Wow. That's an amazing story. I'm going to remember it next time any shred of self-doubt is entering my mind, because it is such a good lesson that, say yes if you believe in it, and trust that you'll figure it out. I love that.
Yep.
Um, okay. Well, that brings us to the end of my prepared questions, which is very good because we have a huge group here. And I know that this group has tons of great questions of their own. Kate has started us off with a question in the chat that I will read, and then I think we already have a hand or two up. So, folks, feel free to throw your hands up or put questions in the chat. I'm going to kind of go back and forth between the two. Just note I think the security settings are such that I or one of the other co-hosts need to unmute you to have you speak. So bear with us as we work with those settings. I will start by reading Kate's question from the chat. Kate says, "Congratulations, Liz, on your upcoming grandkid and your promotion to Lulu. Wonderful news. Question for us: in a multi-staff organization, who do you want major donors to hear from? Can you talk about when and if you should get the executive director involved, or who is best suited to steward major donors?"
You want me
That's
to take that, Lisa, or you want to jump in first?
I think we could tag team it. Do you have any immediate thoughts?
Well, just off the top of my head, it is so situation dependent. So I don't think there's a blanket answer that I can give Kate for that, because in some circumstances, you absolutely want the executive director. They are the most knowledgeable. They have all of the information at their fingertips. And in my mind, are always the best stewards of the organization. And then there are times where there are personal relationships
Mm-hmm.
involved. And those are the times that you want those individuals that have the relationships to be the major stewards, whether they are members of the board, whether they are members of the kitchen cabinet. And maybe we should have another conversation on the books to talk about when you want people to be on your board and when you want people to just be part of your kitchen cabinet. But having board members very often can be the most effective stewards because they have those personal relationships. So it is so situation dependent. But what I will say, and I'm squinching because I have the most amazing chief advancement officer, and I don't want him to hear this. Y'all don't tell him I said this. Um, Many times it's not the chief advancement officer, because I've been in circumstances where I feel like I'm being handled. And I will give a caveat to that. The best of the best don't make you feel like you're being handled. And my chief advancement officer falls into that category. They don't make you feel like you're being handled, but sometimes people can get transactional, and that's a no-no. So my advice to the folks on this call, I know none of you fall into the bucket that I was just talking about, but if you work with people that can make things feel transactional, that is the biggest no, whoever that is. So if it's your ED, if you're the chief development officer and it's your ED that makes people feel like things are transactional, give them the hook. Give them
Mm-hmm.
the hook because you need it to feel relational.
Yes. Um, Liz, I think that's such a good answer. I'll add to that that, different organizations have kind of like different stuff available. And based on, I'll kind of go back to what you said before about really getting to know a person. And there are donors where, like, maybe they don't feel the need to get leadership attention. They don't know anybody on the board, but they are really obsessed with this one program you have and they want to know everything about it. And so, or they're just obsessed with the work that your organization is doing. And there are times where a program staff person is a great person for that donor to hear from. Um, if it's an option to set up a one-on-one meeting, if the donor is like at a level where that makes sense, that's great. Something else is that if you don't have program staff involved in your stewardship events, I would ask yourself what the stewardship event is for. Um, what is the purpose of the event if they're not hearing directly from people who are doing the work? Because that's a great way to maximize resources. To kind of go back to my earlier question, does that all make sense to you, Liz?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. It is so situational, Lisa. It every situation will call for a different person to steward the individual donor, depending on who it is. Look, I run an internship program at our foundation, and the young man that runs that was an intern himself. He's now run the program for 4 years. I take him out when we're talking about, stewarding donors for the internship program. There's nobody that can talk about that program better than he can.
What's more
So,
compelling than that?
yeah, what's more, he was an intern. He runs the internship program. Come on, man, that's the
Yeah.
one. So,
We do something similar, actually. We have a donor who funds most of our intern program, a former board member at CPM, and she invites the interns that she funds to her club every summer for lunch, and we have a bunch of staff at CPM that started as interns, and I like to bring one of them along as like a graduate of her intern program or like an alumnus of her program, and they can like talk a little bit more about what's going on at CPM, and help the interns out, and it's always a really lovely moment.
absolutely.
Okay. Kathleen has her hand up. I'm gonna say ask to unmute, and I think you'll be able to unmute yourself now.
Yes, but I can't start my video.
That's
Oh,
okay, Kathy.
The chat was disabled too. So if you're trying
oh,
to get questions, I don't know that you can do that. So hopefully letting you know.
thank you.
um, yeah, so again, if I can start my video, I will. But my question, Liz, is you obviously give to a lot of organizations and are very philanthropic, but we all know you can't support everything. So when you meet with somebody and you maybe like an initial kind of coffee meeting or whatever, and you find out, oh, this might not be, the cause for me, or it doesn't quite resonate, are you open to making introductions to people that that would be a good fit and likely to support?
100%, Kathleen. And it all, again, you're going to get tired of hearing me say this, it's all situational. So if I've had an incredible meeting, an incredible coffee, if someone that I know and love has said, please, please have this meeting with this organization, and then I realize this doesn't intersect with my giving priority, I will be 100% willing to introduce them to people that I know might be interested. That's assuming that I know people. And then it would be up to the person on the other side to say, hey, I've got 2 or 3 folks. Can you maybe introduce me to them? If I know them, fine. I'd be happy to. If the meeting feels very transactional, going back to that theme, Kathleen, I will probably not then pass that feeling on to someone else. So the bottom line is, yeah, I mean, when we look, if the cause is something that I see real efficacy behind, then I want that organization to win, even if it's not something in my giving priorities. So the answer is, without doubt, yes, as long as it doesn't feel transactional.
Thank you so much for the question, Kathleen, and thank you for that advice, Liz. I am going to have Matt go next. I'm clicking unmute, so now you should be able to unmute yourself, Matt.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Liz. My question is around planned giving. So I know a lot of us are trying to work themes of planned giving into just more conversations with donors. And like you say, everything is situational, everyone's different. But could you share maybe in your time hearing people appeal to you around a variety of causes and mechanisms for support, like what approaches have been more palatable? What circumstances, what delivery, or maybe some that you've been like, gross, don't do that. Can you share any kind of stories about ways people have done a better job at bringing those topics up?
Around planned giving, Matt, in particular?
Yes, around planned giving specifically.
You will be surprised to hear that I've never been approached about that.
That's very helpful to know.
Yeah.
Not for asking me for.
I know what call is coming to me this afternoon, right? I already know what's coming. But no, right, Jennifer? I'm like shocked myself. I've never been approached about planned giving. Let me tell you a quick story, though. And I hope this still applies. It's been so long since my husband and I did this that I don't know if this is still a vehicle for giving. Years ago, when my husband was promoted to president of McDonald's USA, this is before he even became CEO of the corporation, one of our financial advisors tuned us into a giving vehicle that we knew nothing about, which was through an insurance policy. And we were like, what? We don't even have a concept of what you're talking about. Bottom line, right? You buy $100,000 policy, you get $1 million in coverage, you gift that to the organization, and you become $1 million donors to the organization. And I'm like, are you kidding me? She's like, yeah, how do you think people get up on the $1 million board? You don't think they're writing $1 million checks, do you? I'm like, well, yeah, I thought they were writing $1 million checks. She said, no, they're writing a $100,000 check for an insurance policy, and then they're donating that to the organization. I don't know if those vehicles still exist, but my husband and I became $1 million donors to a couple of organizations through that vehicle. And I just want more people to become aware of different vehicles like that, particularly when we're talking about planned giving, where I might not have $1 million to give you right now, but I can invest $100,000. And then upon my transition, you're the beneficiary of $1 million. I can do that. So Matt, what I will say is, even though no one has approached me, if that is a vehicle that's still available, boy, would a lot of people benefit from knowing, or just other vehicles that may be available like that. I think going through the lens of educating people, at least for people like me, being curious in nature, is always a winning strategy.
Thanks, Liz. That's super
Yeah.
helpful.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Liz.
And I don't want to act like I don't know you, Matt. You know you're my dude. So okay.
We have a bunch of questions in the chat. I'm going to go to Alan's question, which I love. Alan says, my agency has several donors who give annually. They are not responsive to our phone calls and emails expressing gratitude and asking to meet. What advice do you have?
I could go one of two ways with this. But I'm just going to be honest and transparent. Stop asking them to meet and keep in touch with them through writing in ways that I'm assuming you've done. Handwritten notes. I don't know. Alan, can you put in the chat or come on screen? What does your agency do? Do you have young people involved at all? Like, is there a way to get a handwritten note from a stakeholder into their hands? Because in my mind, you send me a handwritten note from a stakeholder, you had me at the postage stamp it took to mail it. That may not be the case. I'm 60, almost 3 years old. Those things still matter to me. Young people could care less. So it is situational, but stop asking them to meet. They've got to be compelled to meet. So figure out ways that you can compel them to have a sit down with you. And if your organization works with kids, there's nothing more compelling. Okay, legal aid agency and regular tax receipt letters, handwritten notes. Yeah, but are they coming from the people who have been benefited or have benefited from that legal aid with a story about how that donation specifically helped them? And if that's what you're doing, Alan, I don't know that I have. Oh, yeah, you got to send them. Well, you may have confidentiality restrictions and stuff. I don't know. But Alan, if there's a way for you to get a note from someone who has been helped by that legal aid, dude, I think your issue around getting people to meet could be solved. Even a video, put a old-fashioned little USB in that envelope with a video recording or an audio recording from that stakeholder and say, just pop this into your USB or download this YouTube channel, something. And that person is called out by name. Hey, Jennifer, thank you so much for your donation. I just wanted to tell you how much it meant to me. Problem over with getting a meeting. Problem solved.
Yeah, I love that advice, Liz. That's genius. I would also say, like, to anyone who's not getting responses from donors, don't assume they're not reading your emails or listening to your voicemails or reading your notes. They might not be interested in having a back and forth, but that doesn't mean that your messages don't mean anything to them.
Especially the personalized messages, not the MailChimp stuff. Nobody's reading that.
Right,
Nobody's
of course.
reading that newsletter that you send to a gazillion people. Ain't nobody reading it. They're not reading it. Take the time, write them a direct memo, make sure it's customized so they know it's a direct memo, and send them something from one of your stakeholders and let me know how that turns out for you. I think you'll be successful.
Yes. Thank you. David, I don't want to put you on the spot, David Gee, but you had your hand up before. Are you good now? I can unmute you.
Sure, I put the question in the chat, but I can, pardon me, I can do it here. Liz, you mentioned authenticity before when you were talking about as a solicitor to other people. And, you know, one of the things that happens many times with board members when we're talking to them about helping with asks is they worry about quid pro quo. And it's a real thing, but we know it shouldn't be a barrier. So my question to you is, how do you talk to fellow board members or other colleagues about that issue and how to get over it?
I hope you believe that I'm being authentic when I say this was the one question that I hope would not come up. David, I promise you. I was like, ooh, I hope nobody asked that question, because That is so real. It is so incredibly real. And I don't have a good answer for it, David. And I can say that with complete transparency because it happens to me all the time. I want you to participate in something that I'm doing, and I know right behind that is going to come. And hey, Liz, by the way, I've got a dinner I'm chairing next year. Would you consider being a co-host along with me or so, David, I don't have an answer for that. And especially here in Chicago, where that quid pro quo is more prevalent in my mind than in other cities that I've lived in and in other cities that I've done work in. It's just an expected thing, right? Because we the culture here in Chicago, y'all, is unlike any place else. Y'all know that. I don't have to tell you that. But people expect you to be good corporate citizens, good civic leaders. They just have that expectation because we have such a rich history of it. But that quid pro quo is real. And I don't have an answer, David. I would love if anyone else has a good answer for that because I got nothing for you on that. And it's almost to the point where it can be paralyzing, where you don't want to ask because you know the ask is coming back to you. So I was hoping that question wouldn't come up because I got nothing for you on it, David, except that it's so real. And yeah, I don't know. What does anybody else have? Anybody else got something for that?
David put his hand back up, so you can unmute now, David, if you want.
Okay.
Um, if anybody else has something to add to this topic, put your hand up now and I'll unmute you after he's done.
So Liz, my question to you then, my follow-up question, and this is the sort of suggestion I make to our board members, is we're not asking you to ask them for money. We're asking you to share with people who you think might care about our work the opportunity to learn about it. And be honest, like you said, at the end of the day, I'll hope you join me in supporting this mission. But right now, I just want you to hear about it. And if you decide it's not your jam, that's fine. My only ask is that you take the time to learn and join me. Come have a glass of wine at this reception or whatever. What do you think about that as an alternative?
I think it's perfectly fine, except that that still comes with a quid pro quo, David. They're still going to be asked to come listen to mine. We met a guy, Don and I were in Tokyo last year when the Dodgers played, was it the Cubs? Maybe was that the game? Okay. And we met a gentleman there from Chicago, and we started talking about what we really wanted to do with our internship program. And it was great conversation. And when we got back to Chicago, there was an email waiting for us that said how he wanted to have a conversation. Would we be willing to sit down with the ED of an organization whose board he sits on so that he could tell us about the work that they're doing? So even if you're not asking for money, the quid pro quo is still very real. And everybody knows in the end, it all boils down to money. So yes, that gives people a little bit more rope to participate and engage, but the quid pro quo is still real around that. And I think, David, the best I can give you is they just got to be comfortable with that because it's coming. Here in Chicago, it's coming. And I think you just got to wrap your mind around that it is what it is. And if you're going to get anything done, you got to be okay with it because it's coming, David, right? It's coming. David, what's your position in the organization? Sorry.
Oh,
sorry. Maybe
okay.
Put it in the chat for me.
Ooh.
Sorry, Lisa.
I'm trying to unmute him. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
You guys go ahead. I'm the Chief Development Officer at Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Okay. Yeah, David,
Thanks,
it's a real thing. Boy, I'd love to chat with you a little bit more about this because it's tough.
Right on.
Yeah, it's
tough. Cool. I can put you in touch with each other if you want.
Cool. Absolutely.
Okay. Let's go to Sarah. Sarah, I'm gonna unmute you. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for all the knowledge you're sharing with us. So I have a question. I'm a newish executive director since the summer of a fair housing organization in the northern suburbs, and for a long time,
Congratulations.
thank you. Our organization has a long history, but a lot of our funding in the past has come from the federal government, expanding into foundation grants and things like that. But we don't have much of we have some individual donors, but they're at a much smaller level. Like a big gift for us is $250. And so, how do we get started with a major donor program? How do we start? I mean, we do have a couple board members that might give, in the single digit thousands, but that's it for us. So, just wondering, how do we start with that, and how do we grow that program?
Sarah, do you have a board? Yeah, and do you have people on the board that have pretty substantial social capital that they might expend?
I mean, we do have a board, and as I said, we have a couple people that are, kind of enter into that, might give a few $1,000s each year. Um, and we've tried to start doing this year, especially we're trying to get more house parties to get people to invite, like you're saying, have people come to your home and just let us talk about what we're doing and talk about why civil rights are important and why it's important for us to step up as a community for our values and not just rely on the federal government that may or may not be able
Yeah,
to support the work right now.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, Sarah, my best advice, and it strikes me that the people on this call would have better advice because they're the professionals at it, but you've got to get one or two folks, maybe they're on your board, maybe they're not, and this is where research is going to be super important. Who are the biggest fair housing advocates like in Chicago? And you got to get on Muckety Muck and do the relationship mapping and figure out who knows who, but you've got to get them to host something for you so that the web of connection can begin somewhere. And I'm not familiar with this as an issue in terms of who the best people are to have in your corner with this, but they are out there. The folks on this call will know who they are. The forefront folks know who they are. And you've got to get a couple of them in your corner to host something on your behalf. But this web of connection has to have a ground zero. Ideally, it's with board members. But if they're not the right folks, then you've got to identify a couple of folks that are the right folks. Local is always better, but man, if you can get a national advocate here in the city and build an event around them, that's also really a successful strategy. But Sarah, you got to find the folks. You've got to have two folks where ground zero can start, and then
mhm.
it's gonna take time. But that's my best advice for how to
Thank
go about
you.
it. Of
That's
course.
Yeah.
helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Sarah, I would be happy to talk to you anytime if you would like. My first immediate quick thought is make sure that every single one of your board members is giving something. Because if they're going to turn around and ask their networks, they have to have some skin in the game, financially speaking first. But I could spend an hour talking to you about this, and I'd be happy to connect if you want. Katrina, I'm going to unmute you.
All right. Thank you so
Hi,
much
Katrina.
hello, Liz. Hello, everyone. Thank you for this webinar to really help give insight. Actually, Sarah asked my question, but I was just going to follow it up with a question. I'm executive director of a nonprofit. It's a grassroots nonprofit. So my question is what advice would you give me for expanding on my board to get more board members that may be able to give or may be able to connect with other organizations just in that individual giving. I learned so much from being with AmeriCorps, but being executive of a nonprofit is kind of different. So
Yes,
I
it
just
is.
wanted some advice in regards to like expanding the board so you can get those right um, members that really support and are connected in that way. And thank you so much for everything you're sharing.
Oh, thank you, Katrina. Let me ask you before you go back on mute, what does your organization provide? What services does it provide?
We provide free STEAM programs in underserved communities. So we have robotics, and we also have one of the first and only astronomy programs in the underserved community. And all our programs are free. So that's a bigger challenge. But yeah, we have a great program, and we're ready for that individual, bigger type giving. Relationships. So I definitely wanted advice in regards to expanding the board to approaching people that may be in position to really position us to make a greater impact.
Yeah, okay. Ooh, board development is always one of the hardest things. My organization, I run the Cafe Group, and we have the 1954 project where we award, leaders in education with unrestricted grants. And the biggest question that we always have, how do I build my board? How do I have a more effective board? This is time for just the brief version of the kitchen cabinet conversation. And the reason that I bring that up, Katrina, is because these days, the people that you most want on your board are the people that are triple booked on every possible board there is, right? So you want the people that are on boards, and they are the very people that don't have time to be on your board. So it's this circular conundrum that exists. But what people do less frequently is ask people to be part of their kitchen cabinet, which doesn't carry along with it a requirement. First of all, it doesn't carry any fiduciary requirement with it. You don't have 4 meetings a year. You don't have to, do all the things that you have to do when you officially become a board member. But if you ask someone to be part of your personal kitchen cabinet, help advise me. I may only call you once a year. I may just need you to do this one thing, and that's it. People are more willing and are more open to an ask like that. And then if that one thing goes well, Katrina, then maybe you can ask him to do one more thing. But the idea of not having to commit to a board, and they're probably already part of 2, 3, or 4 boards, it's appealing to folks. No, I don't need you to be on my board right now. I just need you to host a lunch with me. Can you do that? Can you host a lunch with me? Can you have coffee with me and another potential donor? That's all I want you to do. Maybe you ask a person to buy a table at somebody else's lunch so that you can then invite some other folks that you want to be in your circle. You may not have a gala, right? Okay, that's fine. But some other organizations got a gala. Maybe somebody can buy a table. And then you can have those folks be with you at that lunch. And while you're listening to what the other organization does, you're also dropping I mean, I don't know if this is maybe cool to say, but I'm just telling you, this is a tactic. Start recruiting folks for your organization as well. But building a board is hard. You already know that. I'm not telling you nothing new. Building a kitchen cabinet is easier, Katrina. So, especially for an organization that's small and not as known, start with the kitchen cabinet. You will eventually get folks invested in what you are trying to do, particularly when they see those babies and what you're doing for those young people. And then it's on you to convert them. But the easier ask may be, you know what? I'm just putting together my kitchen cabinet. Can I rely on you to just do this one thing for me? Just this one thing. The chances are higher that you will get folks to say yes to that than to making a commitment to serve on the board. At least it's a first step.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'll also I'm going to say something that you said in a slightly different way, Liz, which Katrina, we don't want board members we don't want people on our board if they're not going to be engaged and active. And something I want to emphasize that Liz is saying is that the best way to ensure you have an active board member is to get them involved in some way first, to get them to feel kind of like Liz was talking about at the beginning. Brian Traubert got her really excited to be involved in CPM, where she was practically like jumping onto the board and not like hesitantly agreeing, if that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Liz, do you have time for one more question before you have to shoot
Yes.
off to your next appointment?
Yes, I
Okay.
do.
I'm gonna read Judy's question from the chat. If you have limited time and resources, would you prioritize the top 25% of your donor list for stewardship, or focus on the middle group to engage them and try to cultivate them into stronger supporters?
Ooh-wee, that's an advanced question there. That's an AP question right there. I'm going to give two answers. One, the people on this call know that answer better. So can y'all put in the chat what the real answer is to that? Because you know from experience what the real answer to that is. Of course, I'm going to say, I would try and pour into those donors that have already demonstrated their commitment to writing you larger checks. So I have found personally that it's easier to advance those donors to write even bigger checks than it is to advance the mighty middle. But I don't know. I don't know. I really would want the people on this call that have the experience doing it, but I defer to the people that have already demonstrated the ability to write big, because they usually have the ability to write bigger.
I agree with you. I think there's no world where you shouldn't prioritize them. Your top donors should be your top priority in terms of energy. However, I would get creative with what your bandwidth could look like. Is your CEO and board as engaged as they can be? Are your events really smart and strategic and making the most of your resources? Are they serving the people? Like, make sure. I would do if you're feeling stretched in terms of your bandwidth, I would do a full audit of how you're spending your time, so that hopefully you don't have to sacrifice relationships with your donors. Would also love to talk about this offline if you're interested. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to that? Because I think this is a really common quandary. Julie says, need to focus on both, but prioritize top donors. I'd offer one-on-one tours to major donors and group tours to mid-sized donors. Yeah, genius. They're
Lisa,
still all getting access.
I'm going to have to run to my 10 o'clock, but I just want to say thanks, y'all, so much. This was so energizing. Your questions were so amazing. Invite me back anytime. Let's do a 102 version of this. This was 101. Let's do a 102. Thank you for those of you that could be on screen, and for those of you that couldn't. I felt your love too, especially through all the hearts and claps. Thank y'all. I will close on this because it's the way that I always close if you've ever heard me talk. Don't be afraid to bring love into the room with you. I know that it sounds corny, and I know people roll their eyes when I say it, but I will go to my grave being an evangelist for love. It's the only thing that's going to help us. It's the only thing that ever has, and it's the only thing that ever will. So don't be afraid to, take it off of the hook at home and bring it into the office with you, because love as a strategy works. It really works. Don't be afraid to leverage it. So thank y'all for having me, and Lisa, invite me back anytime.
You're the best, Liz. Thank you so much.
You are the best. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.